Okay, reading you now, Pete.
All right. I didn't like the idea of safety wire for the pry bar, so I made a ring out of one of the wires that held the...
You're unreadable, Pete.
Yeah, that was a bit soft, Pete, on it. You may have to stick that thing down your throat to talk to us. Okay, we could read that you didn't like the wire on the pinch bar and you've rigged up tape. The only thing that I can say is that with only tape and no wire around the pinch bar, we did pull the tape loose. So you want to make sure you've got the wire loop that you've got there secured very tightly and not just with tape.
Yeah, Pete, that tape may get kind of warm out there, in which case it's going to lose its strength and slide around a lot. Hey, Pete, on that pinch bar also, not included in the procedures is for you to, or EV1, to take that off of the bed before you start pulling up on it, even if you don't use it. We'd like to have that done just so you don't have that extra mass sitting out there on the bed.
We see the doctor getting in his suit. We're wondering if he's going to try to go out today.
So I want to get a halfway feel for the difficulties of handling that 25-foot... never mind.
Okay, we think that's a good idea, Joe. Okay, Pete, we can see you've got the bridle rope there with the small Apollo hooks on the end. Okay, we can see your safety knots and your bowl in there. That looks just right.
That looks good, Pete.
Okay, and since you had that, let me just at this time give you a couple of words on where that goes when you get down to the vent module. The vent module itself, and Paul, you may have out that same Swiss map diagram. When you look at that, the vent modules that are shown on SAS beam 1 are actually upside down. They should look like the ones on SAS beam 2. Now that's not terribly important, but the diagram is a little bit wrong there.
I noticed that last night.
Okay, the trailing edge, and Pete, let me see, yeah, we got your look at the apex hook, and that's exactly what we were talking about. Let me only say that the crew systems people have looked at the rope and the limiting strength on it, and they've come to the conclusion that when the rope breaks, when they break it around 400 pounds or so of tension, and it gives at the knots, usually where the rope goes around an edge. Okay, that looks real good, Pete.
Okay, Pete, also on that, you do need some way of retaining that stop on the apex hook so it won't open up on you. We recommended tape.
Okay, when you get down to the vent module, Pete, and go to hook on the bridle, the trailing edge of the vent module has a slight fairing, a triangular fairing, which brings it down smoothly to the beam. That fairing is about 3 inches high, the same height as a vent module, and it's about 6 inches long. At the point where the lower corners of that fairing come down to the surface of the beam, there are stress relief cutouts right down there, and you can hook those small Apollo hooks into those small cutouts. They go in relatively easily. However, the Apollo hook will not lock. That is, the jaws on the hook will not close. So what you need to do is to coordinate that with Joe so that when you put the bridle into the aft portion of the vent module, you maintain a slight tension yourself until Joe cinches down with the apex hook on the other end, takes out the tension. Okay, we see you headed for a speaker box there, and we're about 35 seconds from an LOS, and we'll have about a 1-minute dropout until we pick you up at Texas.
Okay, Rusty, I need to have you tell me about that. I understood that they weren't going to hold, but I want you to describe the end of the box again for me.
Okay, fine, I'll do that, Pete. While we got just a few seconds here, we may go LOS while I'm telling you this, but just for your information, the damper, the actuator damper for the beam is still at minus 60 degrees, so that we do expect that you will break the bracket. The dampers in the SAS panels are all reading minus 40 degrees. And I'll have a few words about the SAS panel deployment itself, because we do have a relatively critical operation on that. Okay, we got you again here at Texas, Pete, and if Paul has got that Swiss map out, he can sort of sketch this in also. The bet runs vertically down, it runs almost down the middle of the beam. So if he wants to draw a vertical line on that thing that goes almost down at 8.0, the bridle, the intersection of the bet, of the long part of the bet with the bridle occurs just about at the top of where the louvers would be in the middle of the vent module. And the bridle then goes down to the two lower corners, to the left and right lower corners of the vent module. Now, what you've got there, Pete, is essentially a single piece of aluminum that makes up that aft fairing. And right down on the surface of the beam, the extreme lower corners of the vent module have a small cutout there, just rounding so that there are no sharp there aren't any high stress points on that piece of aluminum. And I'd say you've got an opening which is about a ½ an inch to 3/4 of an inch high and probably a 1/4 of an inch wide. And the hook of the small Apollo hooks there, the hook portion of it, will slip right into those. You have to sort of hold the hooks horizontal if you're looking at that map and slide it in, and then when you take up tension, the hooks will stay in those slots.
Yeah. And now I did not use tether hooks. I used the two tether hooks off the other end of the Apollo sail. That was all right with it. I can tell. I'll go compare them here.
Okay, that's fine. They'll take the stress. I'm sure that they're the same Apollo hooks. And understand you just wanted to save the wrist tethers. That's just fine.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing that'll help you with those hooks, Pete, is to make sure that the springs are functional so that they're spring-loaded closed, because they'll help hold it into the holes before you draw up tight on the bet.
I understand. Now tell me another thing. Just how do you get yourself under the bet?
Okay, after you, first of all, when you go down, we're going to talk a little about the details of going down there. But what you do, Pete, once you're ready to cut through the strap, you take your the Apollo waist tether that's going to be hooked to your right wrist, and you take the big end of it and hook it to the 32-foot section of the bet rope that is above the intersection with the bridle. And after the beam is free, what you do is, using that rope as a trail, you just move back above the hinge line and just work your way underneath the line. It's not that tight. There's really no problem. And as soon as you get underneath it, as you begin to raise up, you put compression on yourself, and so it's quite natural to be able to stand up, and the rope holds you down nicely against the beam fairing.
Okay. Now the pin by the discone antenna, if you were looking at -X facing the discone antenna, it's on the right about 9 inches away, sitting in an angled channel, isn't it? That's
very good, Pete. It is about 9 inches to the right, and it's oriented parallel to the fast separation plane there. Now, okay,
we can see it from the window, the SCS window.
Ah, that's great. We never even thought about that. There is one caution that we want to give to Joe, and that is that he wants to tether his long tether that's hooked to his chest at that point, and then the disc cone antenna itself becomes one of the things he can use for stabilization as he tries to lay the cutters down alongside the beam. Now, just for your information, you can put 40 pounds of force 4 feet up from the bottom of the disc cone antenna, and it's okay. That'll give you a factor of safety of 2 on that. A precaution, though, is that at the base of the disc cone antenna there are 2 coax connectors which provide the signal path down inside, and Joe wants to be careful not to mash those connectors.
Understand. Now, the A-frame that you're referring to is the 2 DAF members that the disc cone antenna tray is mounted on, is it not?
That's exactly right. The disc cone antenna tray is mounted at the -X end on a cross member that goes between 2 of the DA trusses, and that's what the apex hook goes over. And the end of that cross member is directly in line with the SAS beam, so it causes the bet to lay right down on the center line of the beam. It's just right.
Now wait a minute, say that again, where it goes.
Okay, if Paul's got his diagram out and he draws in the DA trusses, okay, you've got the diagram right in front of you. Okay, the 2 DA trusses, one of them comes out of the fast ring at about 7.6 and B0, and the other one comes out at about 9.2 and B0, and they go respectively up to 8.0 and A0 and 8.8 and A0. If you see a trapezoid up there with those 2 DA trusses.
Okay, now that's the one that's got the disc cone antenna tray in it. That's also the one we can see from the window.
Okay, right. The cross member goes between those 2 trusses, and it's located 6 feet off the fast ring. That would be on the diagram horizontal line at about A2.
Okay.
Okay.
Monty, where do I put my feet?
Stand by just a second, Joe. Pete, the left-hand end, looking at the diagram with +X up, the left-hand end of that cross member then is directly in line with the SAS beam, and that's where you hook the apex hook.
Okay, that makes sense. We can see all that out of the STS window.
Yeah, that's great. We never even thought about that, and that's better than any diagram we've got. Now, Joe, what you do is when you first get up there on the A-frame, you'll tether the long, your 6-foot tether that's hooked to your chest to that pin at the base of the disc cone antenna, and that becomes your prime tether point. You can get from the fast beam, or rather from the fast, then the disc cone antenna all the way back to the A-frame without ever disconnecting that tether. It allows you good freedom for getting back and forth. Now, what you do when you're trying to lay the cutters down the side is you tend to use the edge of the fast ring, watching out for those coax connectors for your feet, and you can wrap your left arm around the disc cone antenna itself. And of course it's a lot easier, or should be a lot easier, than in a water tank where you're fighting all the drag and buoyancy, and you should be able to place the cutters right down alongside the beam.
But you got him standing up along the radial axis.
That's affirmative when you're hooking on the cutters. Now, when Joe goes, after you get the bridle hooked up, the bet hooked up, and you're ready to actually cut, what Joe wants to do there, we found a cutting technique where what Joe does is lay down along the rods, face down to the workshop, and hooks his toes over the fast ring. In other words, his toes are draped over the fast, and he's laying down along the outside of the fast. And all he does is pull on the rope that causes the cutters to cut. He doesn't have to worry about putting compression in the rod, in other words. Just pull on the cutter side of the rope.
Okay, about those connectors, it's obvious that there's a risk that they'll be damaged or broken off, and that's something we're just going to have to accept.
Right, we recognize that, and all we're asking for is reasonable prudence on your part, Mr. SPT.
Right, and in that evolution and also in the evolution of repositioning the scissors and so forth, we'll just have to wait and see when we get out there whether we have adequate restraints to do the job. For pulling on that clothesline, it sounds like you need to be a little negatively buoyant, and I'm not sure we can manage.
Negative. With your toes hooked over the fast ring there, Joe, and you're holding on to the rope, it just pulls you out straight right along it, and you should be...
That's the only reason that we included them on the list. Yeah, we agree. It looks like a nice day.
Yeah, it got kind of bad last night, though. Anybody up by the ATM C&D?
Negative.
Okay, we're in no rush for this, but when somebody gets a chance up there, we'd like to read out during a daylight side, that is when we get the sun up, reg volts and amps, bat volts and amps, and bat temp on CBRM 17. You can call down for a reminder on that if you'd like later.
Okay, I'll get it for you in a few minutes.
Okay, there's no big rush on it. One other comment on the preps. We've looked at the TV, setting up the TV down here for the EVA, and what we're recommending is mounting the monitor on the top of the TV camera with the screen facing the lens. That is, so you'd be looking at the screen and the lens. That way, I think the screen will be out of the sunlight when you're facing it back toward the parasol. And it looks to us as though you can mount the universal bracket on either left or right shoe, whichever seems to be most convenient for you. And on XYZ settings, we don't have any. It looks like you guys are going to be the best judge of where to point it. And for your information, we are back on real-time TV, and we got Joe working on his suit there. And Pete, I got your bag in view there. As a matter of fact, that's a lot more clever than we were in the water tank.
Well, I remember what I was talking about, prep time and what you counted. What we put in on this last night, from starting essentially at gathering this stuff up until we pretty much got it together, not counting the refinements that were made today, we got about 10 man-hours in it, we figured.
Okay.
Where's the hurricane?
Stand by, Paul. We'll get that for you.
That's not important now, Rusty. Never mind.
It's still in the Pacific.
Call them hurricanes in the Pacific now?
Arose by any other... Okay, Pete, we're seeing your vice grips there hooked on. Can you tip it down just a little bit? Okay, good. Yeah, that's just what we were, that's exactly where we were recommending, right? And you can sort of lay it back right up against your chest, Pete, and it keeps it from snagging. Paul, it looks like it's about 12 north and about 110 west, just a little bit east of that, maybe 108 west.
Okay, what do you want on CBRM 17?
Okay, we'd like to have the reg volts and amps, bat volts and amps, and bat temp.
Okay, reg volts is what apparently is our standard no-cut values of 22.5 volts plus 5 amps.
Okay.
Bat volts is 36.36. Bat amps is plus 7.
Thanks, PJ. Okay, and Pete, one thing we'd like you to do is think over what your situation is here and basically what the task is, and we'd like a recommendation from you sometime, say, within the next 2 hours on what your status is and what you're recommending as far as going ahead with it for tomorrow or Friday.
Well, listen, Rusty, there's no doubt in my mind that the sooner we get it done, the better off we are, because it's going to take us 2-3 days to recoup. I mean, we've just about had the place cleaned up and in shape and a nice routine going, and we've just wiped that out and demolished the place again, unstowed everything. So I know we're going to be tired when we get done, and I know we're going to have to put the vehicle back in some semblance of shape, and of course, y'all want to play with it a little bit if we are successful. So we're shooting for going tomorrow.
Okay, I understand that you feel you go for tomorrow. We do have EVA Prep for tonight, so if there's any difficulty in setting that up, just let us know.
No, Joe, test hop getting into the suit, that's a piece of cake. We're Paul's putting the changes in right now in a manner that we can recover from the changes for the next EVA. And I've just finished working that tether bag, and I'm going to go start continuing to work towards EVA until our time period ends. On EVA, we'll go back to it tonight.
Okay, fine. The one pad we got to get up to you, aside from the unavoidable changes between now and then, but the one we know we're going to send up to you is the procedures for the 82A, the 54, and the TV, and that'll be coming up on a pad, and you can take a look at them. Those are the kind of thing where Paul would be reading EV1 do this, EV2 do that.
Yes, well, let me just caution you. There's no doubt in my mind, as you mentioned, that we can get involved like we did at GEM the 11. And if we do a lot of flailing around out there, I'm sure that we can run out of gas pretty easy. So I think you better figure if we're unsuccessful in the first hour and a half, we're probably not going to get the job done. And I hope we haven't worn ourselves out to the point where we can't go ahead and do 82 and all other.
Hello, Sky Troops. We got you through Goldstone for 16 minutes.